almost done. You got knobs with LEDs. Each of these are different colors. This is purple, and these are two are different whites. Voltage regulators that go into them and the potentiometers. And then basically, these are the plugs that you can plug into something that for the light itself. So if I want to run this light acts as a spark gap. So the coil will plug from over here. You plug one of these coils in, which is this coil, and you plug that over into here, and then now that connects into this LED. So next thing to do is to be able to get this to sound like something, I gotta exit this. So, and then I gotta go into an input over here. So I have to either go back underneath, because this just comes off, and go back underneath and wire in a way that adds this to a speaker itself from the opposite side, because LEDs have two little prongs. They act like a little spark gap right there. So basically what I did is I made these plugs like a switch. So when you plug something into it, it won't work unless it's an induction coil or a coil that is connected into itself. That's kind of how a speaker works. So these coils all are like that. Infinity coils, this is like, it starts here, it's still just one connection. So these have two wires, but technically it's just a separation of where that wire goes versus the center and the end. And then you take that, and that's conductive to each other. So those will plug into here. Once they're conductive to each other, that triggers the voltage line across that, connecting the LED. So now only thing is to get that to be an output so you can hear it. It'll still technically work using the LED as kind of like a frequency in itself to the coil. So you have all kinds of different ways to hook up. This frequency generator will go into here, and then that will be controlled on one channel. But the thing is that these are all outputs. So we have 8 different speaker outputs, left and rights. We have 16 speakers, I think, underneath here. They look like this. So they're little pizzicato speakers with magnets on the other side. And this one kind of, if I hold it there, is kind of opposing those magnetic fields. Now my crystal is stuck there. Sorry about that. These are going to be little test areas, kind of like, I guess, what they would call witness coils. Or basically I have these other little coils that wrap around these magnets here, and so each one of these coils can hook into an output like a speaker. So these are all speakers, so I could take this coil and put this around the magnet here, and each one of these will act like different speakers with different opposing magnetic fields. There is a spinning magnet here that is very strong, so if any of these magnets affect any of these magnets underneath or these layers, you can test each one of these magnetic fields with a speaker or a frequency or a voltage going through the light LED colors, because each one of these colors is going to produce a different kind of frequency voltage. So it's kind of like we would be using it as a spark gap or a loop, like where something's going to plug into something and the light is acting like the connector itself. So then we have 2 frequency generators. This one's a frequency generator, pulse generator. This is a frequency generator. Both of those will be separated into this board. This board goes into this board, so we have 8 more inputs. There'll be a plasma driver here too for doing small plasma tests. So we have a little ion tester here. We have a EMF tester for testing the magnetic levels of different things once it gets going. We have adjustable antenna or coil These CBs are going to be like input output. So instead of talking into the speaker, you would be putting this into a output, the speaker itself, or a frequency generator as an input. So these are input outputs for broadcasting the frequency to the other CB. So each one of these can act like receivers or broadcasters with the frequencies. So basically we have this is a vector network analyzer. So these are like little things. They come with these antenna hookups, and they'll allow you to read kind of like different radio waves and frequencies in the air. So once we hook that up and the antenna's up to it, then we'll be able to read some of the higher frequencies or the megahertz or the radio waves that are going through here. I'm building a tiny crystal radio here. So I'm waiting for another part because obviously it didn't come with it. So I'm still trying to do that one. Didn't really need to hook up, I don't think, this pulse generator. And because this one kind of acts like a frequency generator, pulse generator right here. So this will have the capability of doing either or and have a couple different outputs to it I haven't hooked up yet. Each one of these are outputs or inputs. You know, these are the speakers. So you can hook up a speaker. This will also have a little speaker here with a where is it at? Right here. My little fitting. So you could attach a cymatic speaker to this. They screw on. When I make my kits and I make all the cymatic stuff, this I print all my parts, make different pans, make different sizes. I pretty much have done every single shape and size, different things like, you know, these cool different shapes of these, stuff like that. But so, and then we have vacuum tubes here. Basically, I'll show you how I did this. This is positive and negative, so we can either come from our power from over here, or we can go directly into power, which it only needs like, I think 5 or 7 volts. Then we have an output and an input that travels through the tube itself. So I'll wire each one of these to plugs like these. So when I get all my cables, they'll be basically like cables like this, you know, and then each one of the cables can plug into things, and then you can plug that side over to here into the coil or into the voltage. There'll be other ones with the hookups for these. So there's kind of a lot to all this, and it's all just so you can test frequencies and on different levels with magnetics, frequencies, kind of like orgonite here, because this is kind of how orgonite should be, is layered, different electron layers. So there's different layers in there. There's a total of 9 coils in here. So each of these 5 coils here are ones I've built. These 4 coils are these infinity coils that go around. On the top, there's a connecting wire that goes through this for high voltage plasma. If you wanted to do plasma experiments through the top of this. Once again, these all have, let me see if I can, I don't know what I did with that little coil. But I think in the last video I showed that coil. They look like speaker coils. Then I also want to use these little cups and cut out the bottom so you can attach to the speaker coil. You can turn it into an actual speaker and amplify the little sounds too. This is a magnetic thing. It comes out. It's just sitting there. I did this so I have two different fittings that go in there. It's this magnetic one, and then the other one is a little receiving antenna that I haven't built yet. So we can receive into the magnetic fields and see if that's going to do anything. So yeah, there's the other tester, magnetic tester. I have another tester too. And then we'll hook up this, two of these channels will be directly going to, since these are left and right speakers, they'll go to my TV oscilloscope I made, which is right here. So you basically hook these little oscilloscopes, then you build them, and then you open them up and you take speaker wire and you hook the speaker wire up to this certain area inside the TV. I have videos on how to make it, and basically these just hook up to the output of an amplifier, a left and a right. And then if you got a mixing board like that, you can pan the frequencies of different two frequencies, and you pan it, and these will make like toruses and make different shapes and all kinds of cool stuff. If you modulate them, you can even do even more. And so a lot of this is going to be modulating frequencies. You have the option of choosing sine waves, square waves, triangle waves, whatever you want. So in general, it's just a big, huge experimental thing to experiment with frequencies on multiple levels and different kinds of fields and different kinds of things. I didn't set any of it up in the sense of this is going to this directly. This is more like open source. Like this can go here, this can go there, that can go here, this can go there. So that was the whole idea. You want to be able to plug different things into this. You want to be able to read all the fields. You want to be able to read the ion fields, because you want to be producing more negative ions than positive ions, because positive ions are no good. So negative ions, when you're working with plasma, you want to try to create negative ions. This is a little tester. It'll tell you how much ions in the air. And here we have, I think you're supposed to touch this thing. There's like two pieces of metal. So one's supposed to touch to something, and then one's not supposed. I think the back one's, you're supposed to touch the back one and not the top one. I'm not running anything in my room besides that heater, so I'm sure that's going to produce some probably positive ions, I bet you. See the meter going up. Let me see if we go down by the heater element. See, there's still some negative ions, but it's really jumping back and forth, probably because of the fluctuation of heat and cold in the air. But technically, electromagnetic coils and induction like that make more dangerous kinds of magnetic fields than good ones. But it's freezing cold in here, so I have to have two sweats on, two jackets, and a hoodie. So then I gotta hook up these little, also these are like little antennas, they have their metal inside of them. Each one of these, they act like little AM antennas, FM antennas. They all have to get hooked up too. So those will all have like inputs and outputs also. So the coils and everything can hook up to things. Same thing with the crystal radio. The radio was really meant to hook into the CBs, or the walkie-talkies. That way you can, I already got the yellow ones. I gotta buy a couple more colors, purple and two more white ones. But I think that's it, man. I think I'll be able to power this up next week, because I'm really not getting these coils till the end of February. And I'm not getting the parts for this till tomorrow. And then I'll be getting some cables tomorrow. yeah, I think that's pretty much it, because most of this is going to be just ran off USB power. There's not a lot of voltage to any of this stuff, so it's all mostly all just 5 volts. All these amplifiers and these things are all 5 volts. There's a 12-volt amplifier underneath here. That's like a 150-watt amplifier, 75 watts per channel on these. So I'm going to test the voltage that comes off of these, so I know how to regulate the electricity in the voltage regulator so we don't blow up our little LED if we're going to go from an output to the input to the output again. So that's kind of like what you're doing, is you're looping things, plugging things into things. Each one of these coils will be separate with their own plugs, an in and an out, an in and an out, an in and an out, because they're like speaker coils. So these would actually make sound once I actually resin them in here and leave them so you could put things inside of them, like a crystal or whatever you want. I'm not skeptical of crystals and things, because honestly I've been talking to rocks and matter since I was a little kid. So I always just wondered what crystals, how I can understand them. I don't feel their energy. It's more like they communicate not words but emotional feelings or something. And I've always talked to rocks when I was a little kid, and as I got older and stuff, you kind of forget about that kind of stuff. You don't really think about things like that. And when I got into doing this, I didn't do all this cymatic stuff. The very first things I were building were actual crystal tone generators, which are these things over here. So these are like amplifiers with crystals all inside of them, and there's positive electrical current going through all the coils into the lighting. This is how I know the lighting changes the frequency sounds, because these lights are hooked up to these crystals, and there's motors with little microphones. You can't see, there's a silver thing right there, is the microphone, but you can't see the motors because they're really extremely tiny little vibration motors that I hooked up to every single crystal. That's an audio amplifier that I use inside there to control the microphones. And basically there was an input, output, there was a potometer, rheostats that you can control the movement of the vibration motors that were all inside here. And I hooked it up with a Tesla coil or ball on top, and that runs all the way through. But I dismantled it because it messed with my ears and did crazy things, so I don't want nobody messing with it. So I took it apart. Same thing with this one. This one has water and crystals inside of it. They had a fog, a little ultrasonic speaker in there that made fog, and then the fog would go up and through that coil and come out that coil right there. And there was a vibration guitar string there that vibrated and played tone. So a lot of the stuff I first started building was, a lot of orgonite and layered things, and trying to understand, how things worked and electrons and layers. And then I moved into wanting to see what sound looked like, and that's how I got into cymatics and kept on making my own stuff and building my own lights. And this is the last light I built. I don't really like the way it works though, so there's a whole kit right there. Everything is kind of messed up right now because I had to move my warehouse stuff all over here. So now I have like some of my tools all in here. So, because after I started building the crystal tone generators, I started working on like coils and PoE coils, vortex coils, sphere coils. See, that one's like a sphere. And, that one's kind of like a vortex coil in the center of a primary coil. So just building things to understand currents and frequencies and how they actually work, you know. When you test them all electronically, all you're seeing is the path. You're not actually seeing the essence. Oscilloscopes, vector scopes, all those things are going to just show you the path of frequencies. That's why it looks like a wave. And technically it's not a wave, that's just the path. That's just the oscillation of where it's going and the timing. Well, what it's doing is how it got to do that is much more sophisticated layers of toruses within toruses that are in our atmosphere that push matter around. You know, it's how wind and current works, you know. We're in this planet. This planet is nothing but water. So we're inside water. We're breathing water. You know, just because we call it air, it doesn't, you know, to me, it doesn't, I don't care. You know, it's just water to me. You know, we've gone to this point of separation so much as that we're not actually understanding the essence of principles anymore. Because you're breaking it down too much to a point that is understanding on a human mentality, and you're not really understanding it from a natural point of view, you know. That's why the ancient people were so intelligent with natural technology, because that's all they had. That's all they observed for thousands of years. They observed lightning, water, static electricity. I mean, you still feel static electricity today. Go rub your feet on the ground and touch a metal, you know, and you'll get shocked. So imagine the people that first were walking around and then picked up a rock off the ground and got shocked by it. They knew that that had electrical properties. It triggered something within them the more it happened to people. They created technology based on earth technology. They used natural resources to understand that if the earth can create all this energy to create life, then we can utilize that energy to create things easier for ourselves, because that's what technology is supposed to be. That's what an inventor is supposed to do. Not supposed to frickin' invent something to capitalize and make a bunch of shitty money off of it. You know, it's nice to have what we need, and you know, that's why I don't embellish any of this, because, you know, I don't believe in any of that kind of stuff. You know, I'm more straightforward person that was very skeptical of everything, and I had to actually learn and teach myself things, because if you don't teach yourself things, then you have to listen to other people's BS. And a lot of it's just beliefs, even scientific stuff, beliefs, theories, ideas. They're all meant to be broken. They always are broken. They're always layering things and keep on moving forward. So you can't just say this is this, because it's not. It's just that's the understanding you have of it right now. You know, in evolution, things evolve and experiences create the memories so we can evolve those experiences. That's why I don't believe in individuality, because individuality just dies. What happens to stay, and it's timeless, is all your experiences that you create in life. Those experiences are what life's about. You know, it's not about you. It's not about your ID and identity. You know, these are things that are being used against you, actually. Marketing, marketing you, you know, categorizing you. And you believe in it, and they give you enough information for each belief. So therefore you can capitalize and control people's behaviors, because beliefs make people's behaviors. You know, this is not a complicated things I talk about, you know. They're not sophisticated because things aren't that sophisticated. Because once they start getting that way, that's just a manipulation to sell you something, to rob you of your common sense. That's the problem with all like this propaganda today. They're robbing of you guys of your common sense. They're taking things that make sense to you and they're twisting it. It's what the politics do. That's what scientists do. That's what beliefs do. And they're all manipulating it so you understand it. And you can say, I'm doing the same thing because a lot of people understand me. You know, you can't escape being a hypocrite of calling out things that humans do around trying to fix what humans have created. It's almost impossible.
You know, there's many fail-safes in this system that keep things going and repeating over and over and over. And it all starts with your individuality first. Who you are and what you think you are and why you do what you do. You know, lots of people don't get that your surroundings experience is what your experience is. If I took you and put you in a jungle and from a baby and raised you in the jungle, didn't teach you language, I just taught you nature, you would only understand that. There would, you know, the mind doesn't just gravitate towards ignorance, you know. Ignorance is taught to humans, and they embrace it, unfortunately, with entertainment and identity, and create elaborate things to support that identity and belief, you know. And the bottom line is these things are tools being used over time. And that's why everything repeats over and over and over. And it's not going to change until you go out of your way to change it. You know, that's why I changed myself. I never believed I was a human being. So therefore, I finally accepted, hey, if I don't feel like I fit in, I don't feel like any of these ideas make sense, and then I go and do things myself, and all the things I was taught, all the things I learned through science and technology and all that, and then you get down to it, it wasn't that complicated. It wasn't all that. And they just did that so they scare people away and make people not do things themselves anymore. And they made technology seem very difficult, and it's not. You know, you're taking currents and you're moving them from one place to another and having it do what you need it to do. This is not that complicated of a machine here. You know, a frequency generator. There's a bunch of parts in here, but you're not going to get it because, you know, it's just like some of those parts are for controlling the buttons. Some of the parts are for controlling the logic. Some of the parts are just controlling the screen so you can see what you're doing. You know, it's not that much going on that is making it do what it needs to do. And then technically, this is all just nature refined into little parts, you know, copper, metal, aluminum, glass, all this stuff is just nature, you know. And you refine nature and you put it into this little thing, and you created a little circuit board and different things for those rocks and those crystals and that material all to do. It did nothing more than take nature and manipulate it into a piece of this technology. And the ancient people did nothing more different than that either. They just did it in a more primitive way, just like I'm doing things in a primitive way. I don't, you know, this is costing me money to build this, obviously, but I'm usually not putting money into things that I make. I take things apart. I have all kinds of parts and things. If I want magnets, I got all these magnets. If I want motors, I got all these motors. If I want plasma parts and drivers, and I have all that stuff. I have coil parts. I have everything, I have so many things to make whatever the hell I want. And that's the problem when I come out here. And I get overwhelmed because my ideas are too complicated and I can't understand them. Even something like this, I have to take my time. That's why I'm not powering it up right now. I have powered it up because I have to use the amplifier. I had to check all the wiring to make sure all these things work, because some of them didn't actually work because I wired them wrong. So you have to go back and you have to rewire everything. So, now it's time to test all the lighting and stuff. Make sure that the sound can travel through here. Make sure the electricity goes through here without burning the light. So you have to test the electrical currents versus the amplifier currents, because you have to add those up to make sure you don't go over 12 volts. You go over 12 volts, you're just going to break the light. You don't really need anything over 12 volts. So if this is putting out too much voltage, then I have to reduce this voltage down and then be able to plug it into here to be able to use frequencies into the light itself. If I just want the light frequencies, I just plug it in directly, because that will go to the coil. And then the coils have magnets in here. So if I plug in the other ones with magnets into the output or an input, then I can actually hear what's going on inside here. So there's a lot to being able to look at all this and read all this and do all this and do it all yourself without freaking any, background in this. I taught myself how to build music equipment. When I was in a band, I rebuild our guitars, I build our speaker cabinets. I learned how to build amplifiers and stuff. So this is all amplifier. This is all audio. Lots of frequency stuff, all this radionics and all this stuff that you see, it's nothing more than a frequency generator, amplifier, a mixing board. You don't see the mixing board because most of them are building them and taking these things all out and taking these things and putting all their pots in themselves. That's what I did here. If I take all this off, I'll show you. And these are little pulse generators, so these you can send in a current, and you can send in a frequency right here, right there, signal, and then a ground. That's your frequency generator, your output. And then you go to your output of what it's going to generate as electricity. So you can do that. So this, you can see, was no fun. I put glue all over it, but basically, having to figure out not to wire the plug like a regular plug, but to wire the plug like a switch, and then these are already wired in. There's a amplifier inside here with a distribution block that goes from the amplifier to the distribution block. That distribution block I wired into these plugs. So now we have the plugs so we can plug in outputs. I got to do the same thing with these. So I have to get more of these. Really, I want the ones that go up and down because they're going to plug into here. And then we have to have the capability. And so instead of wiring a cable into this, we're going to wire in a plug. So now when we plug in our wire from here, my input can go right into one of these. So any one of these can be plugged into the mixing board as an input. If I want to go output, whatever this is putting out goes right here. So the speaker and all these different things these little coils can be outputs or inputs. You go input, output, input, output, input, and create a feedback loop system. There's so much you can do with this. And that's kind of why I built it, because it's like, I want to be able to test things and not just theorize about them. I get so sick of watching and listening to people's BS online. It's just mind-boggling how you guys are all just so into whatever the fuck someone says, and they don't have no fucking proof of it. They don't have any real evidence of it. They're not doing any experiments to test it and showing you it with equipment that's properly tested. It's just a bunch of BS playing on your common sense. It's like fucking dumbass flat earth shit. They're fucking with your common sense. You are not fucking understanding water. You are not understanding physics. You're not understanding fucking what the hell holds you here on this planet, which is 6,000 miles of fucking atmospheric pressure of water. What the hell you think is up in the air? It's fucking water. You have 6,000 miles of fucking water above you, and you're made of water. There's an equilibrium of that. You can go into the ocean and see that there's layers of salt water, and then there's more denser fluid underneath where there's a whole different layer of water that looks totally different from the ocean itself. You guys don't get that everything are these layers within layers. You don't just live in this one-dimensional world that words created and separation created. You live in a multi-dimensional layered reality of functional principles, not beliefs, not meaning, because there is no meaning, because everybody could just make things up for meaning. Oh, that means this for me. Well, that doesn't mean that for me. That doesn't make it meaning. What's the principle? What's the principle behind it? Why is that doing that? Why do you act that way? What is an action? What is a behavior? Where does it come from? Why do you think that way, and what triggers you to be that way? Why are words able to trigger you? They're only words. They're not real. They're made up. The only thing that should trigger you is when someone does something physically. They act like an asshole. There's lots of that going on right now. Just drive down the road. You'll see a bunch of people driving like assholes. You know, it's really funny to me that humans think that it's hilarious to be an asshole. You know, that's all everything is right now. It's like you're all being played. You're all being like used. Don't understand your own mentality of what reality is. Your reality has been given to you. And you've accepted that reality. You'll fight for that reality. Fight for that individuality. You know? Everybody wants to claim this and that. And you know what? I don't want to do any of that. I want to understand things on a level that is real. I want to understand things that I can utilize and actually do. You know, there's a ad for this frequency generator because this part actually was connected to it, and I cut it off because I can use it as an antenna better than where the fuck it was just sticking out of here for no reason. You need these things to be directional, not just sitting here. They're not gonna. These things don't do shit. You know. They claim that, oh, this technology's been hidden from you. What the fuck? This technology has been around forever. People have been making coils forever. You know? Even ancient people have been making spiral coils. You know, you don't understand, because people's beliefs back then actually meant something. You know, it actually did have meaning because they all believed in it. They all worked towards it. They all created it. And that's gone now because you have millions of beliefs, millions of ideas, millions of perceptions, millions of personal projections onto reality. And it's all done with your common sense. What your common sense thinks. Now let me tell you, in my mind, I'm always thinking, what can I do to make something? And I'm going to give you an example how common sense doesn't fucking work. I came out here and I've done thousands of experiments with plasma. I've lifted things up, I've moved things around, I spin things around. They don't have no gears, they don't have nothing. Plasma works because all the electrons in the air. So I wanted to levitate and connect the wire to me. So connect the wire to me. Now I'm charged. Now I should be able to use that charge off my hand to levitate, or not levitate, but levitate a piece of aluminum or a piece of material off my hand. Well, instead, I did that, and I turned on the fucking thing, and these things don't really electrocute you like electrical currents, you know, unless you start building, like you start plugging them in with lots of amps. And so the power supply on this, I upgraded to too many amps. There's a lot of amps in this. So when I'm using my stuff, I can use one driver. Unfortunately, it melts the driver. But when I grabbed onto this and then I put the fucking piece of metal above there, technically I've done this on plastic. I have plastic, it has metal on it. I put the fucking wire on here, and then I hold the other wire in my hand, and I can control things moving around. So instead of the plastic, I wanted to put it in my hand. Well, that motherfucker zapped me so bad, worse than electricity that you get shocked with 110, because of the amps in here. Enough to you can get killed from stuff like that. And that thing zapped the crap out of me and burned a hole in my hand right here in the center. And then I'm sitting here thinking that should have worked, because common sense tells me that I'm using it. I'm doing the experiment. I've done it before. Why can't I use my hand? Well, I can, but I'm going to get fucking electrocuted. You know, I could die. So you see how your common sense isn't always so good. You know, a lot of things that you think make sense actually are not the reality of what it is. And frequencies, sound, electronics, magnetics, plasma, the more I learn about it, the more I realize all the shit I see on the internet, all the background crap I see are just a tiny fraction of what you're actually understanding. And it's being manipulated to gain your attention. Because a lot of stuff today is based because a lot of information has been given out there, but it don't mean it's fucking real. They just put it out there so people question it, so more people are online, so it creates more ad revenue. You see, commercials used to make a lot of money and a lot of ad revenue. Now that doesn't exist anymore. So what they have to do? They have you guys all as the advertisers. You all posting bullshit. You all posting crap. So people keep on clicking on it and watching it and then realizing, oh, this is weird. This is crazy. Or that makes sense. But the reality is you're being used to make ad revenue. That's the principle. That's the bottom line. You don't understand how all your behaviors are being used. You don't get how this language was designed to make you believe you are something you are not. You're not a human being. That's just a label. That's just a freaking idea. What you are is something that he is here to create and learn and absorb and evolve, and humans have not evolved. Technology has evolved, but humans, they're still doing the same crap. They're still fighting. They're still at war. They're still separated. They're still individualized. They're still got their, beliefs that are all standardized, and how you do your belief and what you do and how you do it. All your rules. That's who you are. You're programming. When we built computers and made computers, that's like making a human. You know, you just programmed information into things, and that's what they did. They programmed information into you people, and it's not this information is right and this information is wrong. It's all wrong. It's all the narrative, the whole entire thing. There is no side. This is why I totally laugh at people that think there is a conspiracy of this and that and blah, 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 blah. Those are all just lies to get you sold on something. Every single thing is a marketing item. Every single thing is ad revenue. Every single thing, including yourself, is marketable. You are worth money. And you're worth more money when you can post and share and keep on spreading the bullshit, because it keeps people not doing anything. And it robs them of their common sense, and then they separate themselves even more. Then their behaviors are being controlled. Then people are triggered, and then those behaviors go and do irrational things. Go drive around crazy. Go fucking shoot somebody. Go hurt people around you. Be an asshole. You don't understand that how much the humans over thousands and thousands of years have been being used. You actually have it good today in these kinds of times. You're not going to get murdered just for randomly like you would in the ancient days. You didn't believe in something, you were just murdered. you didn't obey what everybody did. You're just, hey, you're done. You're out of here. If you didn't follow the rules, and this is why humans follow rules. This is why over generations of that kind of treatment, people conformed because they were content. And that contentment enslaved them. And then how they use it is through your individuality, your identity. Your identity is how this is all done. Who you think you are and what you are, and then you act like that, and then you behave like that. You're actually being controlled by your own free will, by a subject or a belief. What do you think politics is doing now? All this separation, dividing a country. This is the hugest mind control project that's ever been placed on humans. They always are experimenting on human beings. You think all this mind control stuff is technology, and that's what it used to be. They don't need technology. They have you. You are the technology. You are the tool. They trained you. They programmed you. They know how to push buttons and triggers with beliefs and ideas. They control your emotions. They control your actions. Religion started that. And it was actually a good thing because people needed to build a society. People needed to understand how to work together and become one. But that was taken advantage of through greed, through money, through information itself. People think money rules this planet, and it doesn't. Information does. That's why I don't buy into information, and I created living information. That's why I don't buy into anything, and I'm a skeptic of all things, even myself. I don't listen to my own voice a lot of times. I'm very skeptical of the things that my brain produces and thinks. It's not hard and it's not easy to be a person that analyzes their own mind all the time. Usually it'll drive you crazy. And I kind of already went through that. And I went beyond that when I got into cymatics and I started watching frequencies and I started understanding things with the mind. Everything changed for me. Words didn't matter anymore. And they were worthless to me when I started to understand what I was actually, my brain was actually using frequencies and using memories and experiences through my past. And every time I look at frequencies or hear them, and its sound is all around you. Frequencies and vibrations are your feelings are all around. How you think intuition works. How you think you know something when you go out and look at it and you're observing it. Where does that information come from? How do you know? See, that's where you have to be disciplined and not let your ego or your identity take control of those ideas. You have to be beyond that, and you have to look at your surroundings experience and become it. It's like I said, if I took you and put you in a jungle, you would only understand the jungle. You wouldn't understand anything else. If I put you out of the jungle after 20 years or 30 years of being in it, and I put you into society, you would not be able to function in society. It's just not possible. The brain would not allow you to conceive what all that is, especially all at once. You would have to be integrated in the jungle with technology and then understand things at a level, and then you can go into the technical world. So if you don't have the tools and you don't have the skills or you don't have the understanding, you're going to get taken advantage of by your surroundings. The jungle will consume you. If you do not know how to work with it, you will die. Anywhere on this planet, if you do not know how to work with nature, you will probably die. Even being in society, if you do not know how to work with society, you go mad and you go out and hurt people and you're gonna die, or go to jail. There's all this stuff, doesn't, who you are and what you think you're doing is seriously, honestly, just worthless in the sense of what we should be doing and what we should be communicating. We don't need these words, really. We have them, we understand them, but we don't need them to rule our life. We don't need every time someone says something to get an emotional response from it. And that's brainwashing. That's how mind control works. When I understand my actions for doing things, and then for instance, I went over to somebody's truck and they were always parking there. This is a long time ago, and they were always parking there, and I was like, bro, you get out of our driveway, man. And I bang on his truck. I say, yo, get out of the driveway. We were going to work here. We got to pull out of the driveway ourselves. And he got out of the truck and he was super pissed and angry. He must have been angry about other things, but he was super pissed and angry, and he wanted to fight. I don't want to fight people. I'm trained in self-defense and I know how to protect myself, but some of those things I can't control. If you're the type of person that's just been blocking anger and blocking all that shit your whole life, and then someone freaking unleashes it, sometimes you don't can't control that stuff. And I'm that person, you know? So I've learned that I don't need to have these emotions that trigger responses like that. So I have to be disciplined. I have to take responsibility for my actions. I understood that I pissed this guy off just by banging on his truck and telling him to get the fuck out of the way. He didn't like that, you know? And eventually, you know, as he's so angry, he hits me in the face. And I mean, I'm just like, whatever. I kind of laughed, and I just was like, I I don't understand why. What is your problem, bro? He just kind of ran away. He didn't even know how to respond. You know, and it was just like I called the company, I told them, and I said, "Your driver just fucking hit me in the face." But I'll take responsibility. I did go over there and probably piss him off. So if I didn't go over there and piss him off, he probably would have came out of the truck and got all mad. But I said he needs to learn how to control his anger. You know, I'm gonna take responsibility. He hit me, but I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna deal with that, you know? And most people wouldn't have dealt with that. They would have fought that guy and beat his ass. But I know what I'm capable of and what I don't need to do. I need to be responsible. And it takes way more of a person to be responsible for doing things and trying to get out of it with some fucking excuse, you know, like fighting or being angry. You know, that's I used to be full of anger and hate. So I know all about it, you know. I don't know anybody on this planet that hasn't been angry or pissed or hasn't shared all the emotions that we all share, because those are how they are programmed. You're not experiencing anything that nobody has experienced. Everybody's experienced it. It's just a different level, different time, different moment. And not everything happens all at once. And then it does happen all at once because it's happening somewhere in the world right now. Many things all just happening. It's just chaos, you know. You can't balance out the reality that humans created. You can't balance it because every time you think love, you create hate. Every time you create hate, you create love. These you're not understanding. There needs to be a neutral zone of understanding those things and putting them into action. Don't think about them and say them. Do them. And that's what I did. You know, I came out here, I got sick of saying things. I was sick of trying to understand what this all is and that all is. And I just said, fuck it, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to do it. Then I'll understand it eventually. Because even when I came out here and did it, it doesn't mean I understand it. You know, it took me a long time to understand all this. And I still don't understand it all because there are things in my mind still processing everything all the time. And everything keeps evolving to these new levels. I didn't start off doing cymatics and say there's no geometry and it's all about the torus. No, it took me 5 years to understand how frequencies and water were being manipulated as geometry. There's no geometry in sound. That's an experience of the container itself. A circle, a square, a triangle, a rectangle. That's the information you're seeing. The frequency is just a vibration. It's just an oscillation of matter. It's time and space. It's got a space and time. That's what time and space is. Don't overcomplicate things. And don't let what you understand overcomplicate things. And don't let your common sense overcomplicate things and think that it's that simple. Because it's simple and it's not simple. This is a conundrum. You know, there is a huge conundrum of this experience of this reality. It's not as complicated, and it's not complicated. There's only these levels of experience that will allow you to keep on filtering it. I have to keep filtering this. I can't retain this information. I can't just keep saying and repeating unless it is a factual thing. And to order to find a real fact is almost impossible because things aren't really facts. They change. The only factual thing I've seen so far is the torus, but all the information on this freaking planet about a torus is a freaking donut, and it's not a donut. You know, it's an infinite amount of things going on within the space that you can't understand because you only know a donut, but it's not a donut. You know, it's more like a freaking sphere making this, but then it collapses in on itself, making itself again in the matter of space it has. So it can manipulate. If space isn't perfect, then the torus isn't going to be perfect. It's going to create a stretched out, elliptical, weird, twisted dimension. You could see it in the bubble experiments. The matter isn't just this linear thing. Nothing is linear. Everything's curved. It's like all this is curved. Your eyes and everything. It's everything is based on the torus, and it's not a donut. It's more complicated. It's more complex than just that. You know, it goes within itself to infinity. You can't comprehend infinity. You can't understand that matter keeps going. We're too linear on our understanding, you know? All the things like mathematical and geometry, these are lines and linear things. But things move, and they don't always move in one direction. They move in multiple directions, twisting and turning within themselves. They create all this balance over time. That's how something in matter is formed. It's not just formed like that. It takes so long for things to adjust into its surroundings experience. Like water keeps moving if you don't tune it correctly. Like you don't take out the water and put the water in or turn down the amplifier. You don't adjust all these adjustments, you're never going to get a perfectly symmetrical image of what you're trying to do, you know? And with everything that you do, it's still the same process. This is why I don't believe in very much, but certain principles. And once you understand just the principles, all the other stuff is just kind of bullshit, and you have to rewire your brain around everything because you can't get used by it anymore. Believe me, I still get frustrated. I still feel what human beings feel. It's just that I don't feel connected that way to hold on to it. I don't feel connected that way to let it rule my life, you know? I let everything just go, you know? It's like I can be upset. I can do things and just let it go because I'm going to take responsibility for it, you know? I'm the one that's going to have the repercussions of that, you know? Even doing the good things. All the good things I've done have had repercussions. Me giving away a cymatics kit for 2 years every single month cost me thousands and thousands of dollars I did not have, that I thought I was going to be able to make and recreate. But it didn't work that way. And then in the end, all that giving ended up putting me back 2 years on trying to catch up on certain things and kind of not being able to give things to people anymore. This is the only project I've recently worked on that they're paying for just the parts, but I keep on buying more parts. So I'm not charging for the whole thing. I'm learning by doing this, so that's my reward, you know. After I'm done building it and I test everything I need to test, I'm sending it to him in Europe, you know. I kind of forgot where he lives, but it's going to Europe, you know. And only thing I charge is for parts and the shipping. I'm not paying for my 6 months of labor building this thing and trying to figure out what I'm doing, because that wouldn't be fair. A cymatics kit is the same way. Those things take me like weeks and weeks to build. And I'm not charging weeks and weeks in labor. When I go to my job, I get paid, about $1,800 a week, So if I were to charge $3,600 to build a cymatics kit and the parts that cost about $500 or $600, that'd be like a $4,000 machine. And who the heck's going to buy that? The most expensive one I think I've built was like 2 or 3 grand. And I don't think it was that much. I think it still was less, and the shipping was a lot, and there was just more crap in it. So the more stuff but you can keep on buying crap, stuff can get more expensive, so it doesn't mean it's better. And I found out very much in reality of things, you do get what you pay for with certain things, but other things, you're kind of just better off like digging up old equipment, because they actually have better parts than them. It's like old lumber. People tear down their house, and if their house was built in the old days, your lumber on that house is actually way better than the lumber you're going to buy today, because that lumber wasn't farmed. That lumber actually grew natural and has very tiny rings and is more compressed. Farm lumber has bigger, larger rings and is freaking weak. And termites and stuff love to eat it because it's not as dense. So the wood just gets torn up. Now, old wood, it still gets eaten. And if you got termites in it, don't use it, But most of the wood in old homes don't have a lot of termite damage if the house was built right. But unfortunately, a lot of houses aren't built right. Lots of things aren't built right. So you can't use that. But I've seen things where people have torn out houses, and I'm thinking, why are you throwing away all this good wood? And if they don't want it, I usually will take it, because I'll send it through the mill. I'll mill the wood and clean up the old rough look on it and make it into brand new looking wood. And it's gorgeous. People don't understand. You take all the old stuff off, clean it all up. It's freaking awesome looking. There's a lot of things, even with technology. You take some of these old machines apart and you take apart old stuff and you start realizing, man, these things have some heavy duty parts in here. Even the resistors and capacitors. Well, capacitors or whatever, they're always shitty. But resistors and stuff used to be a lot better. There's a lot of equipment has gotten really chintzy over the years, and a lot more smaller, and you're using more of these chips and things that control more things that resistors and capacitors used to do with trying to regulate currents to do things. Now a chipset can do that much easier, Then they make so many different chipsets. This is kind